All right, everybody, welcome back to the Higher Education Leadership Foundation's Virtual Institute for Fall 2020. We hope that you've had a fantastic day and enjoyed our earlier presentations. And right now, we have yet another fantastic and dynamic presentation for you in a conversation entitled Meager Resources, Fleeting Time, and Dream Chasing: the challenge of fostering innovation while managing organized chaos. We know that this will be an important and robust conversation with our panelists today. Again, we have a dynamic and diverse group of higher education leaders on the panel today. We have Dr. Ivy Taylor, the president of Russ College. We have Dr. Rick Gallo, the president of my alma mater, Grambling State University. We also have joining us a little later in the program, Dr. Makola Abdullah, the president of Virginia State University. And our thought facilitator will be none other than our good friend here at H.E.L.F, Dr. Rosalind Clark Artis, the president of Benedict College. So welcome, panelists.
Hey, fam.
There they are.
Listen, I was expecting theme music or something.
Oh, yes.
Like,
Okay.
what's going on?
Start over. We'll give you some fantastic theme music. So we hope you guys have a great conversation today. And we are all, yes, we're all set.
All right. Well, I am the thought facilitator, as has been indicated earlier, which just means I get an opportunity to have an amazing conversation or facilitate an amazing conversation with some of the smartest people in the game. As you've been introduced, Rick Gallo, just really taking the bull by the horns at Grambling State University. He is a statesman, a lawyer, and an educator, and we are so proud to have you with us today and looking forward to learning from you. Ivy Taylor is a trailblazer, having been the mayor of San Antonio, the first African-American mayor of San Antonio, and only the second woman to serve in that post, and now leading one of our nation's most important institutions, Russ College down in Holly Springs. We are so happy to have an opportunity to talk to both of you. And our subject for the day is Making Magic, affectionately titled, right? Thinking about scarcity of resources, thinking about limitations and time constraints, and yet you're visionaries, you're brilliant, and you have ideas, plans, visions for your respective institutions. How are you affecting change? How are you innovating given scarce resources, a pandemic, a racial reconciliation in our country, and just only 24 hours in the day? Because I'm biased, ladies first. Ivy, can you tell us a little bit about you, number one, your vision for Rust, and how you are navigating those challenges?
Okay, well, thanks so much. It's an honor to be on the panel with such distinguished folks. I am relatively new to the higher ed game as far as leadership. In this capacity as president, I've been president here at Russ College for almost 6 months now. I started on June 1st. As you mentioned, I have a background in leadership, serving as mayor of San Antonio, a council member. My professional background is in urban planning and community development. And I also had the opportunity to serve as a trustee at another HBCU, Houston Tillotson in Austin, Texas. And right now I'm also a trustee at University of Incarnate Word, which is a Catholic school in San Antonio. So I really consider it a blessing to have had the opportunity to have served in a variety of settings, because I think that definitely helps in trying to address meager resources, fleeting time, and dream chasing. But I think starting out with the dream is the most important thing. The Bible says, without a vision, the people perish. I distinctly remember a time in my life when I had to figure out what that dream was for myself. I didn't have the blessing of attending the HBCU. I drank the Kool-Aid on some of the other schools, and I'm a graduate of Yale. And I left Yale totally clueless. No one at Yale tried to connect with me to help me to know what I could do, what my potential was, what my place in the world was. And I remember for about 4 years after that time, really struggling because I just assumed that things would fall into place. And at a certain point, I realized that I had to sit down and come to grips with what the dream was, to write it out and figure out what the steps were to make that happen. The path that I set for myself then at age 24 is one that I still look to as a college president, to do the internal reflection and determine what the dream is, write out the steps for what it takes to get there, what investment is required. For me at that time in my life, it required me going back to school to get a master's degree at that time. So I think for a leader of HBCU, especially for the institution, it's good to take those steps. But it's also very important, I think, to share that kind of information with the students because they're struggling to find their place in the world. And so we're creating a platform for them to chase their dreams. But as the administrators, we also have to have a vision for their lives and for the institution and how we can facilitate being a platform for them. So those would just be some initial thoughts for me.
So I was sharing with you before we joined our audience that Charlie Nelms, who has been a wonderful mentor to me, said to me, a vision without money and a plan is an illusion. So you've talked a little bit about the need to have a plan, to write out those steps and really think through whatever sacrifices you need to make, whatever preparation you need to undertake to get ready to achieve those goals. Rick, tell me about the impact of planning in your space. How important has that been for you as you endeavor to lead Grambling State?
Well, first of all, let me thank you all for taking time to be a part of this conversation today, and I certainly appreciate being included. I probably am the worst one to answer that question. None of what I'm doing is what I plan to do. If you had asked me 10 years ago, if I'd be president of Grambling State University for the past 4 years, I would have said absolutely not. When I went to law school, I had visions of going to Wall Street and making tons of money and never returning to Grambling. So I said I would never go into politics, number one, because my father had always been in politics. And I said I would not return to Grambling. I would not work at Grambling. And so I did everything that I said I wouldn't do. And, it was interesting as I, progressed through the legislature and serving there for 15 years, I always, represented the district that included Grambling, both in the House and the Senate. And as an attorney, representing, lots of community people who are associated with the university one way or the other. And so very familiar with the university, but never ever thinking that I would be in this role. And so when I left politics and was approached about the presidency here, and I was told, it was my generation's time to be the leadership this university needed. And that really resonated with me. And so I've used that to elicit the support of a lot of my generation that, this isn't just about me being a singular leader for this institution. It takes more than one person. The president can't do it, as you both know. It is much larger than any one individual. And so I'm very grateful to have an amazing group of students who really do amazing things, who come from some very challenging circumstances, many of whom had been written off for one reason or another, whether it was because they came from an underperforming K-12 system, whether they come from a socioeconomically challenged household, whether they're first generation. I mean, you name it. There are all these challenges, and yet they find ways to become successful beyond their wildest dreams. And so that, I think, is probably one of the things that motivates me more than anything, is knowing that we have students who become graduates who really have an opportunity to do amazing things, and they do, and they do those amazing things. To have a faculty and staff who really are just so incredible. And of course, we just got the announcement this week that we were fully, reaccredited by SACS for the next 10 years. And as I was talking to the provost earlier, she said, this is my third time doing this here, and this is the first time we've never had any recommendations or findings. And so, all those things really are, things that we're very grateful for, and we look at those types of accomplishments as opposed to, and I'm the glass half full kind of guy anyway. So, the resources, we find a way to make it work, and we have been very successful in being able to move the mission of the university forward in these challenging times. And I like Stephen Covey, and he talks about the scarcity mentality that if I get something, you have to lose, or vice versa. But in an abundance mentality, there is enough to go around. So I am a firm believer that there is enough to go around, and we'll get our part, and everybody else will get theirs too. Did I ramble enough on that?
You're not rambling at all. Actually, you really sparked a couple of things. So first, this wasn't your plan. This was not what you intended to be when you grew up. And I think we can all speak to that a little bit. Obviously, I share with you a common profession as a lawyer. It had not been my desire nor my vision to become a college or university president. And yet here we are. And so I think there is clearly, Ivy, you're running a city, right? You're running a city. That it was not your stated intent at that time, right, to go and be a college president. And yet there is value in a plan, but there is also great value in being willing to pivot and consider other options, and to grow and to reach for something that perhaps was maybe ordained for you, and yet not necessarily in your linear pathway. So as we think about the folks that are watching, so lesson one, right? There is no one pathway to the presidency. Mm-hmm. There is no singular preparation for the presidency. We all sort of land here for lots and lots of different reasons, with lots and lots of different skill sets. And I think that's really an important point.
I was going to say, I tell people all the time, one of my favorite scriptures is Proverbs 19:21. Many of the plans in a person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. And so, if we truly trust and believe in God, then we trust and believe that He has a plan for us. And so, if we're obedient and submit to His will and His way, then, as my pastor says, it's sweatless victories. Things just work out sometime, and you look around and say, how did that happen? And it's nothing but the favor of God that you're in that season of being blessed abundantly. And that's where I feel like I am every morning. As I was telling you before we came on, when I get up at 5 and start reading my scriptures to get ready for the day, I know that He's got something amazing in store for us each and every day.
Well, and I think part of that is I saw or listened to an inspiration not so long ago. I shared with some friends. The details of God's plan are not your business. Mm-hmm. None of your business, right? You're not asking how, why, where, when. The details are none of your business, right? Go where He tells you to go, do what He tells you to do, and everything will be fine. And He has obviously called the two of you to lead some of our most important and valuable institutions. So let's think about, Ivy, you started talking about dreams. So when I began my presidency, people would ask me, what is your vision for the institution? And the truth is, in the first 90 days, you don't have a vision. You're trying to find the bathroom. Right. And so I always hated when I was asked that question. And so I hate that I'm asking this question, but so you've been on the job now less than 6 months, right? Right at 6 months. Is that about right?
Right.
Is it becoming clear to you? Is a vision beginning to crystallize for you as it relates to this institution, or are you still sort of thinking through it?
I have to say I'm thinking through it. I kind of chuckle when you were making that commentary just now, because I remember during my research for my dissertation, which I did last year, one of the presidents I interviewed, his institution during his first year that he took the job, well, between him accepting the job and him arriving at the job, the college ended up on probation with SACS. And So when he arrived as a new president and people would ask him, what is your vision for this college? He said his response was, for us to get off probation. That is my vision.
I know that pain.
So, I mean, sometimes you have to react to the context and the circumstances that you're in. And I don't think it would make a lot of sense for me to come in and focus solely on the vision when we're in the middle of a pandemic and everyone is just trying to manage getting through, continuing to provide, you know, a quality education and a safe environment despite the circumstances that we're in. So for me coming in as a new president, certainly navigating the challenges presented by the pandemic or have been top of mind. But I have taken the time to talk with really many people across the campus. It's been a little more difficult to talk with folks out in the broader community just because everyone's kind of staying to themselves as a result of COVID. You can kind of do Zoom meetings, but you know, there's a limit as far as just getting out and getting to know folks in the community. I think it's important that I have that opportunity to gain from others what their thoughts are about Russ College and its place within this small community and within this larger metro area. We are in the Memphis metropolitan area. We're about 35 miles from Memphis, though we're in North Mississippi. And so thinking about how Russ College fits into the larger picture, I think it's going to be important for me to talk with a variety of stakeholders. But, you know, definitely the vision revolves around building on the incredible legacy and success that's been built up since 1866. I mean, when you think about what the context was then for people seeking knowledge and to be able to transform their lives, it really is inspirational and provides a jumping off point, you know, for where we are now. You know, I'm from Queens, New York. I tell everybody I'm from Queens. My parents are from North Carolina, but you know, I grew up in New York City, very different context than a place like North Mississippi. Learning about the context of where I am is a big part of being able to articulate and then execute a vision and understanding in a way that here in Mississippi, I'm a lot closer to things that I read about in history books, frankly, growing up in Queens. I mean, I talk to people, I'm 50, and, you know, I'm a couple of generations.
You look good, girl. You look good, girl.
Thank you. Thank you. Know what they say, it don't crack. So, you know, growing up in Queens, I felt a couple of generations away from a certain type of oppression and limitation on opportunity. But being here in Mississippi, I've met people who are the same age as me, who are one of 10, 12 children, and their parents were sharecroppers, and they are first generation college students, and they're still very close to that history. And so that is really relevant for us here at Russ College as far as the continuation of the work that's been done since 1866. So literally providing a platform for families to be able to enter the job market, create stability for themselves and future generations of their family continues to be a very critical part of the mission. And so the vision is about how to activate that. You know, does that mean, it does mean investing in our physical infrastructure, investing in our, well, the physical plant, the digital plant, because technology is so crucial. And then also, I think, broadening the idea of where we are in the world beyond North Mississippi and making those connections in a global society.
So now, Rick, you don't get a pass because you've been at this a minute. You have a fully crystallized, well-developed vision.
Well, but look, I want to comment on Dr. Taylor's last statement. So, you know, you're not from the area where your school is. I
Right.
was born and reared in this community. I mean, I attended nursery school through college on this very campus. Yeah, so I didn't have to spend any time. I knew where the bathrooms were. I knew, most of the faculty and leadership. But I tell you one thing that really resonated with me my first week on campus as president. This was August of 2016. I was in front of the student union, and a student came up to me, and we just started talking. And he said, "This is my third year here at Grambling. You're the third president, but you're the first one I've met." And that really it did resonate with me. And I said, it's important that that our students know me and see me. Now, of course, obviously in the middle of a pandemic, that has been a little more challenging. And to the extent that I can stay connected via social media, and as we've been able to do some things in socially distance and all of that. But it is, I feel very, very grateful that I didn't have those, initial challenges of having to learn the lay of the land getting here, which, certainly helped me to, move, into the office and really start getting my arms around this job much more quickly. But I wanted to just comment on that part. That's a big change from New York to North Mississippi.
It's been a good one, though.
So as we think about COVID-19, right, both of you have hit on the importance of connection to your staff, your faculty, and most especially to your students. That is perhaps one of the greatest values of our historically Black colleges. We tend to be a little flatter and a little closer to the ground in terms of engaging our students and understanding and appreciating the extent to which they need to know us and see us. And the same is true for our senior staff and other folks within the institution. COVID has certainly made that a little more complicated. But it is said necessity is the mother of invention. Has COVID-19 provided you with opportunities to innovate in ways that you perhaps would not have been able to but for the pandemic? And I know that's a trick question, but while we lament and grieve for the loss of life and the challenges associated with COVID-19, I am of the opinion that it presents a unique opportunity in our lifetime to think about education differently, to evolve more rapidly, and to innovate more aggressively than we otherwise might have. Has that been your experience? If so, how? And if not, feel free to say you're an idiot. That's a stupid statement to make in the midst of COVID-19.
Absolutely.
I can take it.
Who do you want first?
Either, actually, if you want to start, Rick.
Well, and I'll say that it was really more so confirmation that work we've been doing over the previous years was investments well placed. So we invested pretty heavily in our IT infrastructure, shortly after we started, and primarily utilizing our Title III funding to invest in our IT infrastructure. And so when the pandemic hit, the university was very much prepared from a technology standpoint to make that pivot. We had no technology gaps that we had to overcome. Now, where the real void existed, obviously, was challenges that our students had. Now, I will say, this generation is very wired and very technology savvy, and we upgraded our Wi-Fi just about a year ago, and so we've got whether it's true or not, I brag and say we've got the fastest Wi-Fi speed of any school in the state, and I would say we could compete with any school in our region in terms of the speed of our Wi-Fi infrastructure on campus. And all of our students have the ability to connect up to 7 devices. And, it's a really robust system, but, it's one thing to be able to connect your phone and maybe a tablet, but, all students didn't have Chromebooks and laptops and other technologies that they needed, and for those who returned home, experienced some challenges there. So it was very important for groups like the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, who helped out tremendously, and a lot of other organizations who stepped in to provide assistance for laptops and for Chromebooks and iPads and things like that, as well as the CARES Act dollars. And for once, I said, the federal government finally did something that made sense, and that was to base the allocation on the students who were Pell eligible, which meant these were the students who had the greatest financial need. And there were many of my colleagues in the state of Louisiana who couldn't quite understand why Grambling and Southern got so much more money than they did, but it was because the students we serve had greater needs than many of the students who attended their institution. So, from that standpoint, we were really fortunate that those funds came and were directed towards those students who needed it most. So, I think we've really been able to utilize this time productively. There were many of our faculty and others who were saying prior to the pandemic, we need to offer more classes online. Well, guess what? You get a chance to offer all of your classes. Yes, every last one of them. And there were some obviously who I'll quote one, I won't say the name, but who said, well, I'm just kind of old school, I don't believe in the online. Well, look, if you're not teaching online, you're not teaching. So that has given us the incentive to provide online education in ways that we were not previously doing it. So there have been some opportunities that have presented through this entire pandemic, and we're making the best of it. We're making the best of it.
It has certainly created the fierce urgency of now.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And in lawyer speak, the use of technology for teaching is now a bona fide occupational qualification.
Mm-hmm.
So as we think about, what is required of a faculty member on our campuses nowadays is no longer an option to say, my preference is for. Everyone has been, this disruption has resulted in our experience, a real heightening of the need, right? An amplifying of the need to engage technology in a different way. And so I count that a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
I count the urgency that this has created a blessing, because it has allowed us to really double down on something that's been a priority for me for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Ivy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would really just underscore some of those same thoughts. In the instance of Russ College, there had not been always a strong emphasis on technology. However, prior to my arrival, there had been some key investments that had been made in relation to, our capacity, bandwidth, those types of things. But there was still a lot of reluctance on the part of faculty members to design, courses online, or to implement or execute courses online. And so the pandemic actually forced those faculty members to immediately embrace that opportunity. It created more flexibility for some students. It actually created the opportunity for, Russ College students, they're so loyal to Russ. And those who actually did not complete their education, many of them are very focused on wanting to get that degree from Russ, not just going to an institution that's near wherever they may have settled. So we have actually had several folks who, interrupted their career for whatever reason, whether that, may have been family or financial challenges. They've come back and said, hey, I'm in my 30s. I left Russ 10, 15 years ago, and I want to get my degree from Russ. And now I understand that you all are offering courses online. I live several hours away, and now I can take courses. And so I'd like to re-enroll at Russ. So that definitely has been a blessing. We also use some of our CARES Act money to purchase laptops for every single enrolled student at Russ College. And I don't think that's a decision that would have been made if it were not for the pandemic. And so I think that was very helpful for our students to recognize that, hey, at this point in society, having that laptop really is a necessity, just like people used to view, a phone on the wall in the kitchen, is a basic as far as having a household. Now, if folks want to be in the game, if they want to, be competitive, they have to have a laptop of their own or a computer of their own to be able to engage throughout society, not just in the educational aspect. So, and then we used, this incident, this ongoing situation that we're all in, to move the needle in relation to our faculty embracing online learning. And we focused on how we can provide the resources to support them to provide excellent, content online. We applied for grant. We were successful in getting a grant from the Southern Company Foundation, which will allow us to make additional investments in hardware and also invest in some staff members to help us with managing, developing curriculum and online e-learning coordinator. So those are some things that I don't think would have happened in the same time frame had it not been for the pandemic. Another thing that happened that we may end up coming back to was that we actually had, you know how you make all the plans, all our plans revolved around what happens if the students get COVID, because we actually had students on campus. What happens if the students get COVID? We had everything outlined, where they get the test, where they're going to stay, back up housing. Well, someone that worked in the cafeteria got COVID, and everyone that worked in the cafeteria had been exposed to them. The cafeteria had to shut down. We still had students on campus who had to eat. And so that led to relationships with local restaurants, vendors, food trucks. It turned out that the students liked being able to eat from a food truck on Saturday afternoon instead of going to the cafeteria for, we have more traditional style cafeteria. We don't have outside vendors.
You do, girl. Y'all still fry everything. It's awesome.
Yes. So, I mean, that was, something that we may come back to maybe in the future. Who knows? We may have the food trucks come on the weekends or, once a month or something like that. So, we're forced to think outside the box in many ways.
I think the think outside the box really is the theme for the conversation. And I know, Rick, you did some innovating. I was reading about and following you. You were moving to a more digital library, right? An almost exclusively digital library. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, your thought process? Because that was pre-COVID. I mean, you had that vision and that idea long before COVID-19 became a reality. Talk to us about how that vision evolved.
Yeah, sure. But before I do, I would like to give a shout out to Sodexo Magic, our food service provider, who really stepped up. And as a corporation, they had a pandemic plan already in place, so we didn't have any interruption in our food service operations. And of course, being partnered with Irvin Magic Johnson and with Sodexo has been a great partnership for us and has yielded a lot of different benefits far beyond just the provision of food for our students. But to the digital library, I tell you, when I started, and I'll try to make this story short. There was in the lobby here in our administration building, all the presidents' portraits were in there. Well, due to a lot of presidents, we ran out of space. And so there was a recommendation that we move the presidential portraits to the library. So I said, sure, let me, just walk over. It's right next door. Let me just walk over and see what that space looks like. And I was almost horrified just how bad the library was. It had two temperatures. It was either hot or cold. There was really no in between. And this particular day it was hot. And so I knew there had been various efforts along the way to replace the library or make major renovations. But at that point, I knew that that we had to do something to because we couldn't continue to operate in that way. And so and just so happened, one of our board members, James Carter from New Orleans, came up to visit a few weeks later, and 5 minutes before he came, a ceiling tile had fallen and was in the lobby. And Roslyn, as a lawyer, I know that there's certain things I can't say on here about what substances may have been on that ceiling tile. But at any rate, it spoke very clearly to James, who's a lawyer as well, that we had to do something. And so we invited the Board of Regents here to see the library, and they were also really scratching their heads as to why anyone would allow the library to become the way that it was. And so we got a lot of energy behind an effort to replace our library. Well, as an institution that graduates more African Americans in computer science and CIS than any other school in the state, one that has a very long tradition. We graduated our first class of computer science graduates in 1972. So we've been in this business for a while. And I said, what is the technology of not only today but of tomorrow that we should look to incorporate into a new library? And so we hired a library consultant to really come in and educate us on what the future of libraries was. And it became very clear that the library we needed to build was not the library of yesterday. It was not the library that my mama had when she was a student here at Grambling in the 50s. This was the kind of library that would be one of a kind and state of the art. And so we began that process of leaving this 90,000 foot dinosaur of a library behind us and looking forward to the digital library of the future. And that's really how it all started. And so we'll be the first and only in the state of Louisiana to have a digital library. We'll be the first HBCU to have one. There are very few digital libraries around the country, but when you think about how our students research now, so much of it is online anyway. Really the needs of education today are not what they were again yesterday. So we're really excited. And the construction's going along. They're out there right now working on it, and we look to be in it before the end of next year, before the end of 21. And so it gives our students a sense of pride to know that they will have a facility that nobody else around has, and our faculty will have research, a dedicated research space within the digital library as well. It's going to be something that I think we will be proud of, and something that will really help us distinguish ourselves yet again in something that is is very unique and something that we'll certainly be very proud of.
Well, we're very proud of you. It's an incredibly innovative idea. I've been following you for that reason, really excited to see how that works out for you. It's always fun to let somebody go first.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want y'all to come
right behind you, though, right behind you.
Right. Well, I want y'all to come and visit when we cut the ribbon, so you can see firsthand what it's all about.
We're going to plan to do that.
Good.
So you've got plans, you've made some pivots, you have a vision for your institutions, you have grappled with COVID-19 and you have survived. We're all still standing. Our kids are okay. What didn't work? What sucked? Let's just kind of, we always try to keep it real at H.E.L.F. What isn't working? What's been your biggest challenge as you've tried to navigate this, given, again, time constraints, limited resources? What is the anchor on your kite, right? You're flying your vision, you're ready to roll as the president. What is holding you back besides money and time? Because those are a given in this conversation.
Well, I would say just candidly that it is still an ongoing struggle to have all the faculty embrace online learning. I think that was alluded to earlier. So that is an ongoing process. I wouldn't call it a flop at this point, but it's the main thing that comes to mind in response to your question that and I think the other thing we've learned is that I think everybody assumed that the students, because they're younger and they're more tech savvy, that they know how to navigate. Blackboard is our online learning platform here at Russ College. I think everyone assumed that all the students knew how to, use Blackboard in and out, because I mean it's been our platform, but most of our faculty had not chosen to consistently use it prior to the pandemic. And so now that everyone has to use it for every class, we have found that some students could use some training and support in relation to Blackboard. So that definitely will be a big part of our first year experience program, which we're actually in the midst of uh, re-envisioning and reimagining. Something that did occur that, where we try to make lemonade out of lemons this year for us was we were one of the schools that did not get reauthorized for one of the TRIO grants, student support services. The application had been submitted, prior to my arrival. When I got here, everyone said, oh, we're just waiting to hear back. We're just waiting to hear back. We'd had the grant for decades. And for those who are not familiar, student support services, provides additional funding to pay for staff that can help at-risk students and, support students that may be in a variety of categories, whether that be low income, disadvantaged, first generation college, or not have strong high school preparation for college. And so to suddenly learn, as a new president, hey, there's $300,000 out of your budget that's just, you're not going to have. It was a blow, but it gave us a chance to sit down and say, hey, our student support services in our first year experience program could be stronger and could likely better meet the needs of our students. So let's redesign those programs. So that was a way that we kind of try to make lemonade out of lemons. That was something that occurred for us this year here at Russ College.
Well, I can tell you what didn't work. All the experts said all of higher ed would experience 10 to 15% reduction in enrollment, and so their prediction failed here at Grambling. We actually saw about a 4% increase in our enrollment. We're at a 6-year high right now. Our first time freshman number grew by 42%. We went from 876 in the previous year to 1244 in our freshman class this year. And so
Can you send my students back, please? Because I think you've forgotten some of mine.
I did. I did. We took them all. We did. And it was there were schools who, I mean, for a lot of different reasons, did not have students return to campus. But we made the decision that we would have students return to campus. And there were some who, quite frankly, had it not been for their dorm room, would not have been able to attend school this semester. Be it again the digital divide, not having technology at home, or just for a lot of different reasons. We had one student who, when he returned, said, my family was virtually homeless. We were living in a motel. And so for me to be able to come back to campus actually meant that I had a stable place to lay my head. And so, and that's, I know that's anecdotal and there's nothing scientific about that, but to say that we had students who really were able to really fully engage in the education process because they had somewhere to come to, I think was very important for us. And then of course, to be able to put the requisite safeguards in place following CDC and the state of Louisiana, the governor and Department of Health. We had some isolated cases, but there was no major outbreak or despite, from what they tell me, some of the weekend parties that some of our students allegedly attended off campus.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, right. Yeah. we just, we had, we were not impacted in ways that a lot of the experts had predicted. I remember watching CNN one night, and there was some expert on there who, was saying, all of you university presidents who are bringing students back to your campus, you're greedy. You're only doing it because you want the money, and you're disregarding the students' safety and all of that. And, it really put a knot in my stomach, quite frankly, to hear someone who was, on CNN, speaking
Right.
as an expert. And you kind of question, did we make the right decision? But again, at the end of the day, when I think about, the meetings that we had with our cabinet, with our COO, Martin Lamel, who is just an amazing young man who has really done some incredible things, here on our campus, and with Dr. Walton, our provost, and Dr. Ponton in student affairs, and just, everyone coming together saying, okay, we can do this, and we can do it safely. And so, having everyone to come together, put the protocols in place, and provide this opportunity for our students to be able to learn this semester really was something I'm very grateful for. So the only flop was the experts were wrong, and I think we were under some very challenging circumstances able to deliver a high level of education and graduation. That was another thing. We of course, had one of the toughest decisions I had to make in the spring, quite frankly, was to cancel graduation. I mean, you spend these years pursuing a degree, and then the president tells you, oh, by the way, you can't have graduation because of COVID. And so we had 2 ceremonies for our spring graduates. We had 4 ceremonies for our fall graduates. So a total of 6 commencement ceremonies. And just the experience for our graduates, and they were able to walk across the stage. I mean, that is, that's something that you really just can't, you can't replace. I mean, that experience, whether it's different or not, they still were able to walk across the stage. And so we're very, very fortunate and grateful that we've been able to provide that experience for our students.
We had that experience at Benedict. We lamented commencement. We delayed a little bit, and we had a commencement.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our kids walked across the stage, and I think people really understate how important that is for particularly low-wealth first-gen kids. We had a limited, obviously it was a different kind of ceremony that it would have been otherwise, but there have been some articles out this week that really, the students have a good point. You have moved heaven and earth to play football, but you canceled commencement, right? Where are your priorities? Higher ed, where are your priorities? And so I think this has been an interesting time for us to sort of peel back the layers and think about, what are we doing this for? What is driving our decision-making processes, right? Is it the health and safety for these kids? Do we have a full appreciation and understanding for the kinds of kids that we serve? Are we acting in their best interest, in good faith? Are we tapping into what really matters, or are we just kind of moving them through? And so I think out of crisis is born an opportunity to reflect and to get back to the basics and really think about how we serve the very special population of students that we serve and how we do it effectively. But unlike the utopian society that is Grambling, I will tell you that at Benedict, and I will allow Ivy to speak for herself, we had some challenges. And the reason we had challenges is because people are scared. And in the words of the great philosopher Yoda, fear makes people stupid.
Yeah.
You stop thinking because fear captures you. And so when I said we're going to have commencement, there were folks that said, we can't. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We are intelligent, high functioning individuals. We can think of a way to do this safely. And we did. And so I think there are those who, out of fear, or something else that I won't list. I don't know, lazy or something. I don't know. I won't name any names, but there were naysayers on the campus, right? When we went to open the campus, when we talked about hybrid instruction, there have been naysayers. I have not enjoyed the privilege of having everybody say, yes, ma'am, Madam President. There's been some cajoling, there's been some socializing, there's been some negotiating, there's been some teeth pulling, and some pressure, some well-placed pressure to try to get things done. Have either of you experienced any resistance to the kind of innovation that was necessary to navigate COVID-19? Or, is it just a Benedict thing? I don't know. It could be just a Benedict thing.
Yeah, there's definitely been, some of the faculty have been a little bit fearful because here at Russ, we actually had, for freshmen and sophomores, we had hybrid instruction where they went to class in person 2 days a week, and then they were they studied online 2 days a week. And so some of the faculty were really reluctant to go, to enter the classroom at all, especially, considering the news reports about, younger people not being as vigilant and social distancing, wearing masks, and being careful regarding gatherings. So that was, a hurdle we had to overcome. So I would say that's really the top of mind. Yeah.
I would not characterize myself as messy, to coin our prior conversation. I am pretty direct though. Who cried? I did a couple times. Anybody have a tough day during this crisis where you just thought, how are we going to get through this? Anybody have a tough day?
No, well, remember, my last job was mayor. So
you send me your spiritual guide, Rick. Like, you're way too peaceful about all this. Whatever you read in the morning, I need you to go ahead and text it to me every morning so I can have the centering that you have every morning before I come to work.
Yes, I think
staff want that too.
That's what Dr. Gallo and I have in common is the background in politics. We've probably seen some real dirty days. I do remember a few days when I cried when I was mayor, but there hasn't been anything that's brought me to tears here in this position. I'm still just so excited, feel so blessed to have the opportunity to serve. And a few people said to me, Ivy, it's really not a great time to go be a college president. And I'm like, yeah, but I really wouldn't want to be mayor right now, dealing with protests in the streets, COVID, businesses closing, and, and trying to make the budget and, trying not to fire city employees. So I was like, this really is a better gig. So it's just a
good gig. It's been a little stressful, but it's actually great work. I mean, and I will tell you, those were thug tears, just for the record, that I cried. And quite frankly, for me, it was not the pressure of the job. It was the toll it took on my students. I did have homeless students. I did have hungry kids. I did have kids who were isolated from any form of technology and therefore effectively eliminated from the academic process. The enormity of the inequity that still exists in our society, particularly for low wealth kids of color, was so heavy for me at times. The responsibility I felt for these kids, who could have been my own children, really challenged me a little bit. And it also allows you to tap into your humanity. We don't make widgets. We're manufacturing human capacity. These are people like you and I who have come to a college and paid money seeking a better opportunity for us, for our families, for our communities, for our race. And I feel responsible for that. And there were moments that the weight of that responsibility, it broke my heart, because I couldn't help everybody every time. And I really felt the weight of that. And so either I'm just a chump or, you guys probably had an easier go of it, but I have found this to be a very difficult period.
Well, and I was in the legislature when we experienced 9/11, as well as Hurricane Katrina, or Katrina and Rita and Gustav, and and several other disasters.
This was child's play.
But here's the thing, and I was actually in Baton Rouge at a system president's meeting when the first confirmed case of COVID was announced. And so, the 9 presidents are kind of looking at each other like, okay, this thing could get very serious. And so what I did when I returned to campus was to call the cabinet together and say, okay, here's what I learned during prior disasters. You never want to be the mayor who failed to evacuate your coastal town when a hurricane's coming, right? So I didn't want to be the president who didn't try and prepare for what could be, a very significant public health, crisis. And so we pulled, all of our, core team together and then expanded it to our nursing dean, who could address the health part of it, part of our biology department who do research in infectious diseases, everybody who could add some context to what we thought we might be facing. And we just, we all took a part in trying to think through what did we need to do. Our food service director was in to say, okay, we have a pandemic protocol, so here's what we're going to do in terms of delivering food service to the students. So, I mean, when you hire a team to do a job, and you have some very talented people, you've got to let them do what they're talented in doing. And when I tell you that our team was just amazing, so I didn't have to cry thug tears or not. Because we had a team who had every aspect of this. Now, did it run perfectly? No. I mean, no, you can do all the planning you want. There will always be, some unexpected items to pop up. But again, crediting the amazing students who, they grasped the severity of the crisis we were facing. And, we did have, parents who reached out, who were, concerned about whether we would close the campus and all those things. But, ultimately, again, I think we all understood our role in thinking through this pandemic, and we've certainly, I think we're positioned well now because we did have a great team to come together and think through what we needed to do. And
So,
I'll start sending you my morning scriptures too. Okay.
so y'all hiring? I'm just saying, I'm just keeping my options open. I mean, I work hard. I'm committed. I mean, I just want to be with the winner. I don't know. It sounds like you got a great team down there. Congratulations to you.
We do. I'm very, very, very grateful for them. I am.
Sincerely. And I know that you're building that. Ivy, it is when you come into an environment with a new vision, and most people who know me know I say this regularly, they could be highly skilled and wonderful. Every person there could be highly skilled and wonderful, but they may not necessarily be a match for your unique vision for the institution. And so there is this level setting process where we're all learning each other and trying to decide whether this is the appropriate team to move us forward. It sounds like you've really done that work, Rick, and have a solid team that's really simpatico with your vision for the institution and really play their positions well. Right, very highly skilled and play their positions well. And I'm certain that, again, while you may already have achieved that because you may be an overachiever and have licked it in 6 months, it certainly is a process that often evolves over time. And again, could be accelerated in instances where you have a crisis.
Look, I'm gonna quote my pastor again. He always says, "I'm not smart enough to figure this out. I just trust God and do what He says, and it all works out." It's sweatless victories. That's what he calls it.
It does. Listen, I'm going to steal that. I think that has great value. I think that has great value. We have, I know, many people tuning in and sort of listening to the wisdom that each of you are imparting. And so I want to, I know that there are facilitators behind the screens. I don't see anything in my chat log at this moment, but I do want to invite the audience to engage with us a little bit and tell me what you're thinking. I personally want to know, have you fired anybody lately? What are your, I'm kidding. Actually, I'm not kidding. I'm really not kidding. I think we are all prone to, as presidents, say, Benedict's doing great. We're doing great. Everything's great. We're doing great. That's what we get paid to do, right? We are the captain of our team. We get paid to motivate, to engage, to inspire, and to get the best out of our people. But there have been moments in this crisis, at least from my perspective, where I have learned just how great my people are. And I mean, some of them are rock stars, and no, you can't have them. But I've also had a couple that really showed themselves to be duds in this process. Have either of you had that experience? And if so, what'd you do about it?
Well,
So I know it's no for Rick, but
I've had some folks who have demonstrated that they are just such hard workers, willing to go above and beyond. You know, we have some folks who work in the housing division here where, you know, when we had to bring in outside vendors to feed the students, they were right there, ensuring that everything worked smoothly. We actually also had kind of a student outbreak of COVID. Students went to an off-campus party, and within a couple of weeks, we had cases skyrocket like that. We topped out at about 34 cases, which resulted in a lockdown where students had to spend 2 weeks studying 100% remotely, either from off campus or from their rooms, which meant they had to have 3 meals a day delivered and all their activities had to be coordinated. The housing staff were also wonderful in that respect. So I definitely saw that there were some people who, no matter what the challenge was, they were able to meet it, and we got through that. Um, but there are also, you know, there have been some folks where, you know, I've discovered that they don't understand the direction in which, you know, I'm trying to take the institution, and I've had to make some tough choices. You know, when I started here at Russ College, it was made clear to me that this is a family oriented environment. People feel as if they're part of a family, both the students, the faculty, and the staff. You know, people feel connected and they feel nurtured. And so it was difficult coming in and making those decisions because I didn't want people to think I'm trying to bust up the family. But at the end of the day, the focus is on ensuring that we provide the best for our students and that we stay focused on the future of the institution. And so, you know, that means that, you know, I can't do the little shuffle. You know, do y'all remember what was the video, the thing about the teachers, the documentary, Waiting for Superman, about about education a few years ago, and they had this thing called the lemon dance where they showed the subpar teachers in the different school districts would get shuffled around
Yep.
different schools, and then who ended up suffering was the students. And so we're not going to do a lemon dance here. You know, if people are not able to meet the
So,
expectations, then we have to make hard choices.
so that primes me really to make an observation. So internally, we're not doing the lemon dance, right? We're not moving the lemons to another department so that we can be stronger somewhere else. But this is my PSA moment because I don't know, I happen to be the facilitator. How about we not do the lemon dance between and among each other? How about if I call you for a reference, you tell me the truth? How about we not, I mean, sincerely, right? I think, you know, we've all experienced that. You call for
Yeah.
a reference and everybody says, oh yeah, they're great, right? Because they're great out of your shop and into mine, right? I mean, so I think there's an inter-institutional lemon dance that we have to get better at not participating in as presidents and as colleagues in higher education and in this really critical sector that we're in, which is totally unsolicited and unrelated to the topic, but I just felt obligated to say this out
I
loud.
am so glad you made that observation. I think that is, you know, a challenge that we all need to try and
I've been handed some
live
lemons,
up to.
not gonna lie, not gonna lie. And those of you presidents, if you have me turn in, you know who you are. And I'm going to get you back. I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding at all. So how are we assessing individuals? So again, slightly off the topic, but not, right? So if we are positioning our institutions for innovation, we are chasing the dream, how do we assess the extent to which both our employees are committed to the institutional vision and mission and committed to the president in particular, their vision and mission? How do you assess that in your organization?
Well, and you know, it's interesting on that topic. We at our last cabinet meeting discussed the results of our employee satisfaction survey that we did. I mean, you know, you've got to get the data. And so, as much as we, may think we're doing a great job, I think it's always important to periodically provide opportunities for feedback. And the worst thing we can do is think that everything's great without actually giving our faculty and staff an opportunity to weigh in. And it gave us some very useful feedback. One of the things that I think we all probably grapple with is the issue of pay, for instance. And of course, we don't pay our faculty and staff enough. But of course, when you talk about having limited resources and there is only so much that you have to spend, then certainly we have to we have to be diligent in how we how we allocate our resources. And again, I point out Martin Lamel, who's he's Chief Operating Officer and Executive Vice President. One of the things that we've done has been more intentional in our budgeting process and making sure that we are having our department heads to have ownership in their budgets, for instance. And so it requires everyone to have some level of accountability at every level when it comes to the dollars. And as I've said to our team, if we will do some of the simple things like do your desktop safety training, so we can get a reduction on our risk management premiums, for instance. It's like going to driver's ed. So having your kid go to driver's ed. So so the premiums are lower. There are things that everybody can do that provides us more resources. If I go by a building at 10 o'clock at night and every light in the building is on, that means we're paying Entergy to light an empty building. All of those things do play a part. The other thing that we've stressed very highly is the need for better customer service. And I and pre-COVID, we would have at least 2 opportunities each year to talk to everybody, all faculty and all staff. And I said, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect a Disney level customer service experience for everybody who encounters you on our campus. So whether it's our alumni, whether it's parents, whether it's our students, there's no excuse for a bad attitude. If you're having a bad day, take it somewhere else. Because I know when I go to Disney, the person who's taking my money at the ticket counter, they're so incredibly nice. The one who's sweeping the streets, they're all nice. The one who tells you that there's a 2-hour wait for the ride that your kids want to ride on, they're really nice. Is it too much to expect our team to have a smile on their face and deliver good customer service? Those kinds of things can absolutely make a difference. So we've had everybody from our administrative staff all the way to the cabinet to get customer service training. All of those things play a part in our ability, I think, to be successful as an organization. And so as we're continuing to try and improve who we are as a unit, then I think we're able to do a better job and be more successful in ways that we may not even envision. But because we are getting this reputation of providing better customer service, things tend to get better as a result of it. Did I answer your question, or did I just kind of bounce around? And
not at all, but I expected that.
Okay.
I'm teasing you. No, you really, I think if I can extrapolate a little bit, the question really was, how do we gauge and assess commitment to the vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you want to take the institution, and you're trying to create an excellent institution. And that begins with excellent customer service. And so people who are unwilling to engage in that process, who are unwilling to smile in financial aid, may not be a fit for your particular vision for your institution. I think we got it loud and clear that from the very simple customer service things all the way up to the more complex task, we expect people to treat our students like the consumers that they are. They pay Disney money.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, our budget, 75% of our budget is based on tuition. And so, if our customers, I tell them all the time, it's like at home. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, right? So if the students and their parents aren't happy, nobody's happy. So we have to be intentional about how we treat our students, and that's one thing that I have no tolerance for bad attitudes and bad customer service. That's the one thing that just really gets my gets my craw. And I have some stories I could tell you, but I don't want to monopolize the time. So.
Oh, just when gets good, you want to stop talking. Okay.
Sure.
See, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So let me ask sort of a related question to that. And Ivy, if you want to go back to that one, I will permit you to do that as well. But there is sort of old school, just good darn manners, right? Good customer service, commitment to being excellent, right? We all know, right? Whether you're a street sweeper or a ticket taker, do it to the very best of your ability. So no man living, dead, or yet to be born could do it any better, right? We know that. And then we got the new jacks. You got to respect me, right? Respect is earned. No, it's automatic. So there's a difference between kind of old school and new school. And that's true in customer service. That's true in technology implementation and utilization. So we talk about our kids being more tech savvy. Are they, or do they just use a phone, right? Are they pretty good with their phones, or do they really embrace technology, education technology, presentation technologies, et cetera? How do we bridge these generational gaps, whether it be in culture and service or in technology and instructional design? How are you bridging these generational gaps in your institutions?
Well, that all comes down to communication, frankly. I mean, I think that's the answer. It sounds simplistic, but you've got to be intentional about communication. You've got to build in those forums for communication, because otherwise it's easy for people to just make assumptions, and then you still have those barriers. We had a student who would act out quite a bit. Several people tell me the student, he was upsetting people in the business office and other offices, and in his manner of communication. And so I called a meeting with him and a couple of people that had been involved in some of the interactions, just to actually hear his perspective. He said to me, "My grandmother told me that I can get further if I go in cussing, fussing, and acting a fool than than if I'm polite." This was what he learned at home. So, here, some people are judging him for, his behavior, his approach, when actually, by taking the time to talk with him, we learned that he was trying to get things done. And, this was what had been shared with him. So then that created the opening for us to share, we're not trying to disrespect, anyone in your family. However, in this setting, this is what the expectation is. This is how you will, get what you need, or what you want, gain respect. And so if we had not actually sat down to have the conversation, I think everyone would have just continued to be frustrated by his behavior. Disciplinary action may have been taken. Who knows, his college career may have ended. So I think actually taking the time, to build in those opportunities for folks to, actually confront. That's the other thing. A lot of people don't like to actually, confront uncomfortable issues. So you actually have to talk about it. You have to be intentional about that, and you have to recognize that, I may be coming from a different assumption about how people communicate. I have learned here at Russ College, everybody is calling everybody Mr. So-and-so and Miss So-and-so, whether they the janitor or the the vice president of academic affairs. That's not how I grew up. And I also did not grow up saying yes ma'am, no ma'am, because I guess my parents decided they left that in the South, and I did not grow up saying that. And so I don't want to come in
quick.
I don't want to come in here and be disruptive or think for anyone to think I'm disrespectful. So, you know, I call everybody Mr. So-and-so and Miss So-and-so, because that is the cultural norm here. And I want people to know that I respect them. So, you know, sometimes you have to take a step back, recognize, you know, where you are, communicate, confront when necessary, and then adjust.
So, you know, the question is, how are we balancing these sort of generational differences? And so I obviously enjoyed a little chuckle while you were telling that story, because it's at once both frightening and sad. But it really, that's not a generational divide. His grandma told him to cuss you out. Old school told him to cuss you out. Like, that's a problem. And on that note, we're going to cuss out Makola for being late. But before we do that, we're going to let Rick respond, if he'd like to the generational gap question. And then we'll talk to him, because we'll talk to him when we feel like it, because he decided to join us when he felt like it. So that's what we're going to do. Okay.
Brother President, welcome to this very engaged, and I'm thank you for joining us. I'll try to make this real quick, because I know our Brother President's got some good wisdom to share. You know, I was in a faculty meeting, and one of the faculty members made the comment that these students are just so spoiled and so entitled, and, you know, just on and on and on and on and on. So I said, well, here's what I want to suggest to you, Dr. So-and-so, that these students' tuition pay your salary, they pay my salary, all right? And so if you think they're spoiled and they're entitled, why don't you go spend some time in the student union, or out under the tree of knowledge, or somewhere outside of your classroom, getting to know these spoiled and entitled students? Because guess what? They are our students. We have to find a way to meet them where they are. So whether they're spoiled, entitled, overachievers, whatever they are, we have to meet them where they are. And I said, if this isn't the type of student that you would prefer to teach, there are other institutions who may have a more mature and you know, the type of student that you feel like you would much rather to teach. So if you don't like the students we have, there are other places you can go to. You can go to teach.
Benedict.
Except at Benedict, because I wouldn't do that.
No lemon dancing.
I would not do that to you. But yeah, I mean, there are generational differences, and you know, one of the things I always do, or again pre-COVID, when we would do our orientation with the students, we'd have a session with the parents, and I would always tell them, if you're still waking your son or daughter up to get up and go to school every day, or you woke them up when it was time to get on the road to come here, then don't call me or anybody else because your child's not going to class. It's your fault that you didn't give them the upbringing they needed to be more responsible. You know, so if you've coddled them and not had them to use an alarm clock and wake themselves up, then shame on you. And of course, you could always see, you know, a few heads go down. You know, the ones who were guilty as charged. But you know, again, we've got to take them and love them and meet them where they are and help get them where you know, where they have the potential to go. And obviously that requires a little more work for us at times than some other institutions. But if we don't do it, who will? LSU's not going to do that for some of the students that we have here. And so it is our responsibility to meet our students where they are and take them where they have the potential to go.
Thank you very much for that. So Dr. Abdullah, welcome. It is a joy to see you on the screen. I know you've been doing CIAA business. I'm just, you know, the rest of the listening public knew you had an excuse. I just wanted to dog you. But let me catch you up in 30 seconds. Did you fire anybody? How'd that go? Did you cry during COVID-19 at any point? Has there been a bright side to COVID-19, notwithstanding death and catastrophe? Has there been a bright side in terms of elevated or opportunity to innovate a little more quickly, right? The rapidity of our ability to innovate. Upsides, downsides, how has all of the last 8 months impacted your strategic vision for Virginia State?
First of all, it's good to see And it's good to see Rick. It's always good to see my colleagues. And nice to meet you, Ivy. I think this is the first time we have had the opportunity to serve together.
Yes.
You can tell that these other two are a little bit crazy. Don't let that challenge you, right? They're okay.
She knows to take Rick's advice and to ignore me. That's what she's learned here today. Emulate Rick, run from me.
I know that's right. We did have some reductions very early on when we were planning our new budget for this new fiscal year. We budgeted quite a strong enrollment drop, as well as other expenditure needs that we knew we were going to need for testing. And so we did do some layoffs at Virginia State. That was very early. I think it was April or May before we started the fiscal year. The good news is that we didn't see the enrollment drop that we thought we would see. We didn't see the bottom that we thought we would see. And so it was prudent and it really helped us out, but we have been able to avoid layoffs and furloughs since during this academic year. And I'm very happy about that. Did I cry? Sure. Tons of times.
Thug
a couple
tears.
times.
Only thug tears.
That's right. I mean, they were manly, masculine tears. But certainly, I think the uncertainty that this whole thing brought really gave us decisions that I don't think we ever thought we would make in higher education. And it's been as testing as anything. And the only challenge is I think we all got a book to write. The only problem is that we all got the same book to write, right? But it's been a heck of a challenge. I think that the biggest and most difficult decision for us was, as a public institution, not having students back on campus. That was probably about a bigger decision that we've ever made. I think it was the right decision for Virginia State, while at the same time, as I watch our other universities go through it, and I'm proud of the success that they've been able to have. And I think that success is buoying us in terms of us getting ready to look forward for the spring, where we are planning to bring students back on campus for the spring. And so there was a silver lining. We were able to learn some lessons without necessarily going through it. But we still have to march through the fear factor of having kids on campus. That's something that we still have to deal with. Bright side, I think there are tons of bright sides. The bright sides keep showing themselves. We can service students and get students enrolled without them going to the gym. We can do it because we just did it. We can provide, even though we know that remote instruction isn't the best form of instruction for our kids, when we need to do it, we know that we've got another tool in our tool belt to do that. We've also been strategically, I think, between the upper administration, really trying to prepare what happens when we come out of COVID and trying to be nimble, trying to think about and reimagine and re-envision the institution. And that's been a lot of fun also, because we've been able to shake off a lot of things that we couldn't shake off before in the COVID environment, from this electronic paperwork that I think all of our campuses have now embraced in a way that if you thought we would be here right now, we would have never thought we'd be here. So I'm proud of the staff and faculty at Virginia State, and proud of the administrative team. And I don't think it's over. I think we've got a lot more hard work to do, but I'm excited about where we're headed.
I am going to bow out, everyone. I'm so sorry. You know how it is being a college president. Things arise on the campus that you need to tend to. But I'm looking forward to seeing you all in person at some point in the future.
We look forward to seeing you too.
Okay.
Welcome to the family.
Same here. We're going to come visit.
Okay.
And then you've got to come to the ribbon cutting for our digital library.
We got to give her the secret handshake at some point. She's got to get the handshake.
Great. Thanks.
I didn't get the handshake. When am I going to get the handshake? So a lot of levity, but a lot of very serious conversation here today about how we navigated through the storm, and a lot of positives. Rick really shared some of the innovation, some of the good decisions he made early on that really prepared Grambling for success during this period in terms of technology and innovation. And you just heard him refer to his digital library, which I'm absolutely going to copy and have been watching some time. But the title really is Fleeting Time, Limited Resources, Chasing the Dream. Has your vision for Virginia State evolved, changed, crystallized, or has it stayed pretty consistent through this crisis?
I think it's crystallized. And just as a side note, Rick knows this, but at the beginning of COVID, I was on his campus. And so for me, the beginning of COVID was being at Grambling and having to fly out as an emergency to get back to Virginia State. but in some ways it's crystallized. Some of the things around the edges have changed in terms of how we do some of that work, but it's made it even more clear to me that the exciting ideas that we had as a part of our strategic plan that we knew we needed to implement in order to make it to the next level, that it's still time to do those, and we've got to figure out a way how to do it, and we've got to implement because we can't be in emergency crisis mode forever. There are some of us at the university that have to begin to think about what happens afterwards, and I think those strategic visioning, the strategic plan that we have is going to provide critical guidance for us to be able to move forward, and I'm excited about it.
So we all have institutional strategic plans, some new, some old, some consistent, some evolving. Do you have a personal strategic plan? How important is vision boarding, which is sort of a new hip cool thing that we're asking our kids to do, right? Lay out your vision, create your vision board, plan your short-term, long-term. I do it to my children. Do you have one? And is it important for you to do that personally, to center yourself and create your own plan as leaders? I'm going to take that as no, I don't have such a thing, move on. Cool,
Right.
I'm with it. It wasn't my question. It was an audience question. I don't have one either. I'm just
Look, I tell you what, one of my favorite scriptures, many of the plans in a person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevent. Every time I think I've got a plan together, he changes it, and his is always better than mine. Now I will tell you, when I came in 2016, I inherited a strategic plan, and and we went with that plan, and some of the same goals that my predecessors had. Increase enrollment, improvements to infrastructure, deferred maintenance, all those things that we typically have to check the box on. COVID has given us an opportunity to rethink some things that we thought weren't possible. So, right now, as we look towards enhancing our online course offerings, we partnered with Straighterline that will give students who dropped out, an opportunity to complete their degrees through Straighterline. And so that strategic partnership, is giving some of our former students an opportunity to get back in the game and finish what they're doing. We are constantly looking at, and our my Vice President of Advancement, Mark Newman, his new theme for next year is building what's next. And so as we think about infrastructure, what does that look like? New programs, what does that look like? Building on our digital footprint and how we can take advantage of these new programs in cyber and in cloud, and of course, I think the pandemic has certainly shown us how critical the cloud computing is. I mean, we're on a cloud-based platform right now, and so I think all of these things have given us really the green light to pursue things that there may have been some reluctance to pursue before. But one of the points, and Makola mentioned that he was on our campus. I want to encourage everyone who's tuned in today to be a part of the accreditation process. It is so incredibly important to have a team come in and review your school, and people understand the kind of operation that you have. And so, although it does take time away from our campuses to do this, and I just completed an offsite committee work just a few weeks ago, and it does take a lot of time to do it, but it is so incredibly important that we have people who look like us and have institutions like ours who are part of these accreditation teams. So, Brother President, I appreciate you serving on that committee. We got our announcement on Tuesday, and we're very, very grateful to be fully reaffirmed for the next 10 years. And again, having and it's been a good learning experience for me. Every committee I've served on, I learned something that I think helps me be a better president. So there are things to be gained by by serving on those committees. So again, I thank you for your service with
Yes, sir.
SAC COC.
Thank you,
Alan,
and congratulations. And
Thank you.
congratulations to you, Doc.
yeah, listen, I'm just happy to be out of trouble and in good standing. And, I'm going to be Rick when I grow up and never, ever, ever be there again. I inherited too when I came, but it wasn't no strategic plan. So I'm just glad to be alive. And certainly would echo, Rick, it is critically important that we engage in this process. I'm an evaluator as well. It is time well spent. It is the best professional development you can ever get. So regardless of what level you are playing at in the higher education sphere, there are opportunities to serve on teams in your field, discipline, or division. And I urge you to please participate in this process.
It is.
Let's go back to old school FUBU, right? For us, by us. We have to have people who understand our institutions as we navigate this process. We expect to be held to the same standards, but there's context here that's really, really important to understand.
I would echo that as a member, of course, of the board of SAC COC, and congratulations to you both. It's been a great form of professional development for me, and I highly encourage it for everyone out there. If I was going to answer your question, Rob, the one you asked earlier,
it'd be awesome.
I'm going to answer the question, man. I'm going to keep it real. I'm not great at writing things down, and so do I have a vision board? Oh, certainly not. Do I have some things that I'm thinking about all the time? Certainly I do. We had just finished our strategic plan almost right before COVID. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy because, of course, some things are no longer applicable, right? I think we had in there we were going to gradually increase the number of online courses. Well, I think we did that. And then we also said we were going to gradually increase the number of international study abroad activities for our students. And I think we didn't do that, right? So there's some things that are now out of context, and we'll have to go back and review. But the overarching plan for me in terms of Virginia State making its mark, particularly for us in computer science and computer engineering, where we are consistently among the nation's top graduates of Black computer science, Black computer engineers, making sure we double down on what we do well. I think if COVID has done anything for me, it's let me know that that's what we really have to do, and we have to move forward on it as fast as we can. So yes, I do vision, but maybe not a visioning board, Dr. Hartz.
Well, I said at the outset, and you've probably heard me say, we spent some time, Charlie Nelm says, a vision without a plan or cash is an illusion, right? So as we think about the topic of this conversation, scarce resources, limitations on our time, and chasing the dream, the ability to get this work done, that is so very important. With the constraints that we all know exist, and yet still be able to meet the objectives, goals, and oh, by the way, stay accredited. That would be awesome. So let's think a little bit about, if you will, we've got just a few minutes left, and I know our audience is sort of interested. Rick has been just playing up here, just so good and decent, and I'm going to go to work for Grambling. I've asked him if he's hiring. He's evading my questions because clearly I am incompetent to work at Grambling. But have you had any challenges? I mean, where have your pain points been at Virginia State, if any? You may have had a wonderful experience as well. Were there instances, and I'll give you some context for that. The conversation we had really was, some people really revealed themselves to be, their strengths really rose to the surface in this crisis. There were others whose limitations were revealed in this crisis. And we had to figure out how to manage both of those things. And Ivy referred to, and you may be aware of it, this whole lemon dance conversation, where you take a person who is not a good fit or low capacity, you just move them to another department. And I issued a not so idle threat to all of my colleagues who were watching and said, can we not do the interinstitutional lemon dance? If I call you for a reference, tell the truth, right? So that's the reference to lemon dance, just to catch you up. And I trust you would never send me a lemon, would you?
Never.
Because you know me and you know I would kill you. But internally, how are you assessing for competence? How have you seen strengths and weaknesses manifest themselves in the midst of the crisis? And how do you address that in the middle of a crisis?
Wow. That's a really tough question.
You came on time, you would have gotten it in small pieces, but now you got to answer the whole thing all at once because you're late.
Let me start with the good part, where I try to figure out how I'll say some of the challenges that we had. I think that, by and large, to a man and to a woman.
You want a hint?
No, I don't want to hit. No.
Okay.
Go ahead. Give me a hint.
Well, the hints are, Part of our strength is being able to interact with our students on campus. That sucked. Some of our faculty aren't quite ready for online learning. That was rough. Sometimes some people have had problems with that. Not anybody on this call, but I have heard that some people had challenges with those kinds.
In that case, if that's what you're aiming for, let me head right to that. I think the biggest challenge for me is that HBCUs and Virginia State University is built on proximity. Right. I mean, that's what we do. Our brand is the extra mile, the conversations, the informal conversations that happen. Our biggest challenge by far is the lack of informal conversations and communication. So let me give you an example. In the classroom, I'll give you one outside of the classroom. So for most faculty, if you've got a couple of students that are having a problem, you pull them aside right after the class and you say, look, Johnny, or look, Muhammad, depending on what religion they are.
Unless your grandma told them to cuss you out, and I'll have to tell you that story later.
Right. But you pull them aside after class and you tell them, look, you need to step your game up. You haven't turned in homework the past couple of weeks, right? But there's a way that we communicate with students to have them engage or re-engage. It doesn't always work, but that's how we do it. Well, now, after a Zoom, everybody clicks off, right? So you don't have that informal conversation. So now you got a student who wants to know how they're doing. They send an email to the faculty member. Well, the faculty are used to getting back emails in 24 hours or 48 hours. But that was before, when we had informal conversations also. But now the student doesn't get a response for 35 minutes. They email me, right? But it's just kind of more of a impact of the current world where the informal communications aren't happening. The same with me. Many of my staff and faculty, where before you'd see them in the hall, you see them at a game, you see them somewhere. Now every meeting is a formal meeting. Every question that's asked is a formal question on Zoom. And so we have to work harder to develop the relationships and remember the love that we all have for each other, which kind of starts, it's built in those informal moments, right? So that's by far been our biggest challenge. I think that the success is that in some ways we figured it out. Not enough, but in some ways we figured it out. Some of our student affairs people are doing incredible work bringing folks together. Some of our faculty have figured out how to engage students in different ways. Some of our advisors are doing things differently to be able to do that. And so what I see is an innovation. I see a lot of folks really thinking about how they solve these problems and these issues. And while I know we'll be back in person at some point, I really believe that the skill set that we're figuring out in terms of how to do this, just like this, like, I mean, if people know me and you, they know we've known each other for a while, right? We're friends, and we can do the informal and the formal at the same time and keep the relationship. I think a lot of people are beginning to figure that out on the HBCU side. And that's going to be critically important, because if we're going to offer a majority or a large number of remote classes, what then distinguishes us as HBCUs from the other guys? Well, what used to distinguish us is that there was more love. So we've got to be able to communicate that love through the screen and through Zoom. And for some of our faculty and staff who can do that, one, keep doing it. And second, teach some of us who may be a little wet behind the ears and not as good at it to be able to do it better. And so if you're talking about, that's by far our biggest challenge. Our biggest success is that we've been remote almost since March, and we're humming. And it is really a testament to the faculty and staff who have put different things in place to make sure that we can continue the vibe of VSU as we move forward. So I hope I answered your question. Did I do okay?
You absolutely did. So as we near the end of our conversation, I want to focus a little bit on sort of the key components of the session title, and that is scarce resources. We've always done more with less. Where do you see that changing? Do you see that staying the same? Do you see that getting worse? What would be your guess as we move forward as HBCUs? So we've seen fundraising pick up. We saw CARES Act, and we talked a little bit about that earlier, that, you know, the flip side, the bright side is that we had some help for the first time in a long time. The value proposition of HBCUs really came to the forefront recently. Do you see that trend continuing? Is the wave over? Or are we going to see a regression? I mean, what's your bet at this point?
My bet is that the wave isn't over, but it won't last forever. So the private philanthropic wave won't last forever, but it's not over yet.
Okay.
I think the public wave is not over either. And I think that for all the advocacy that many of us have been doing in Washington and with folks, I expect to see a continued concentration on HBCUs, at least for the next couple of years. The fact that we were in the campaign on the Republican side and the Democratic side, I think meant a lot. I don't think that wave is forever either, but I don't think that the waves, if you will, are continuing and are ending. I don't think they're ending yet. I think we got another couple of years. But I think the other thing is that the strange thing is we were uniquely qualified to make it through this crisis because we are more efficient. We have more dollars that are going directly towards instruction. Generally, our tuitions are very reasonable. You have fewer students suing our institutions for tuition than suing others. And so I think that it's forced us to be even more efficient. And I think that advantage is when we turn the corner out of COVID, with some of the strengths that we have in some of these waves, I think you're going to see a lot of folks really blossom a lot of universities blossom, our schools, out of this. So I don't think this is, there are people talking about, well, who's going to make it through COVID? I think that's already been answered, actually. If you made it this far, you're going to make it to the end. But I think a lot of our schools are even better positioned to succeed when this is over. Those are my
And some of that really, again, to our earlier conversation, Rick, some of that is because of strategic decisions before COVID ever happened. Your investment of resources in your technology infrastructure, thinking about digital library resources, because there was always scarcity for us. And so having to be strategic in the deployment of those resources really positioned Grambling very well, where some institutions were struggling to catch up. You probably had a bit of a head start. So, kudos to Grambling. What are your thoughts on the resource issues? Exacerbated? We're used to it. It's just more of the same for us, or you think it's going to get better?
Well, and when you said doing more with less, and when again our advancement VP and I were talking, and I said, look, we've done more with less for forever, for almost 120 years. We've done more with less. I said, from now on, I want to do more with more. So that was my challenge to him. And what we've seen between March and now, we've tripled the amount of endowments that have come in just in that period of time than we had all of the previous 2 years. And I think the post George Floyd conversation and everything going on. We look on Twitter and the Shade Room announces they're going to give $100,000, establish $100,000 scholarship at Grambling. That wasn't something we had to cultivate. It was, it happened, and like I said earlier, you're looking around like, God, thank you, God, that's a real blessing that we didn't expect, but we're very appreciative of it. Peyton Manning, just, out of the blue, decided he wanted to establish a scholarship in the name of Doug Williams. Okay. And after doing that, then most recently he and Stephen Curry participated in that golf tournament and contributed another $100,000. And so, we're seeing, just a level of support that we hadn't been seeing previously. And I think just this whole national conversation now about the importance of HBCUs. I think, our enrollment's increasing because students are, hungry for a school where they can go and be celebrated and not tolerated. All of our institutions provide them with that kind of environment that, if they want to wear their hair natural or braided or whatever it is, you're not judged for that, or ball, whatever it is. You're not judged for that. And I tell prospective students all the time, you are free to be comfortable in your Blackness, and that resonates with students. And I think it's given us an opportunity to really do things that we hadn't been doing before. And so I see this point in time now as a period of growth that we will absolutely take advantage of this moment in time and be innovative and grow our institutions in ways that that none of us envisioned when we first came on, you know?
It is the best of times and
Yes.
the worst of times. And for the, like, I was just sitting here imagining, no, bald is not going to work for me. But I had to try it.
But if you chose to, you would
I would be welcome at my
you
age.
would be welcomed at your HBCU. You would not be ostracized for it. Oh,
It works.
there it is.
Thank you.
He had to jump on
That's
and make
right.
me stop. I was
Exactly.
devolving, so he had to jump on and temper this conversation.
Right.
Last question. So resource conversation time. What's the spring look like for you? What are we thinking for the next 6 months? What's the outlook? What's your most pressing concern as we move into the spring?
We're moving forward to have students on campus. We will see how that goes. I'm excited. The faculty and staff are doing great work to get us ready. I think our plans are the right ones that are in place. We've got the resources to make this happen. So it's time to get it done. I think that even though the vaccine is kind of out here in these streets, that we will be dealing with masks and social distancing, I think for probably about another year or so, before it all kind of goes away. So I think we've got some decisions for next fall as well as this spring. But I think when we look at January 22, I think it's going to be a different world, and that's the one I'm really trying to get ready to prepare for.
Yeah, Rick.
But one of the statements you made earlier about schools canceling graduation but playing football. So we canceled or postponed football and had commencement in the fall.
We did too.
Southwestern Athletic Conference that we are a member of. We're looking to play football in the spring, and so we will continue to work towards that. But again, we will let the science and the data ultimately make that decision as to whether or not we can do it safely. And that really, as the 10 presidents of the SWAC, and of course we were expanding to 12 starting in the fall, having FAMU and Bethune-Cookman joining us. But for the 10 involved, we just collectively could not figure out how we could do it safely, and quite frankly, to afford to pay for the testing protocol that would be required in order to be able to compete. Louisiana Tech, which is 5 miles down the road, they've spent $1.5 million just on testing. And so when you think about our budgets, I don't know that I would have been able to reallocate $1.5 million from something else just to do testing for football. So we're looking to do that. Of course, we're planning to move the Bayou Classic from New Orleans to Shreveport for this year, and so with Ray Belton and our friends at Southern, we're planning to be in Shreveport again if circumstances will allow. Our enrollment numbers look strong for the spring. We will do pretty much what we did this semester and set all of our classes up hybrid. But we're very encouraged by the numbers, and we'll actually cut the ribbon on our newly renovated cafeteria January 8th. Again, our partnership with Sodexo Magic has provided us a multi-million-dollar renovation of our dining facility, and so we've got a new natatorium that we'll be cutting the ribbon on as soon as it's safe for our students to go in and swim. Again, the digital library is well underway in construction. All of these things have built so much energy and excitement on the campus. I'm really looking forward to the spring. The future is bright, here at Grambling. I don't mean to sound like I'm bragging, but it.
We get it.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that's part of the job, sir.
When we get
That's
off
part
the
of the
call, I'm going to brag on you. I'm going to go tell everybody what I heard. Listen, the fierce urgency of now. You are the leaders uniquely positioned at this moment in time. As we started this conversation, we start with God. We know He stands with these institutions. If that wakes you up in the morning, if it carries you through your day, either way, we're tapping into that which really dictates what happens, whether it's COVID-19, resource allocation, or how much time any of us has left. I am so honored to serve with each of you and trust that each of your institutions will prosper under your fine leadership. And I wish you all the very best as you navigate the remainder of COVID-19 and the future for your venerable institutions. Pleasure to hang out with you guys for a little while.
Same here.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And congratulations on your most recent award, Madam President.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
what Makola is speaking to, Dr. Artis was just named, well, yesterday, President of the Year by Education Dive for balancing health and equity while opening up her institution as a model for college leaders nationwide. It's important to note that this is not an award for Black colleges or small private colleges. She was named President of the Year across the landscape. And I think it's actually the second time she's done that since she's been at Benedict. I think ACE, she was named President of the Year. So kudos to you, good work. This is the conclusion of a panel entitled Meager Resources, Fleeting Time and Dream Chasing. I could not think of a better cadre of individuals to have this conversation. Makola is my man. 50 grand. I'm just so grateful that he had an opportunity to join us. And the cleanest noob that you ever want to come across, Rick Gallo. He's just consistent.
That's you, Doc.
Not only is he cool, he's got that good wavy hair too. So we are really happy, Makola, to have somebody with some good locks on this mug, right? But Rick, thank you for coming, because I have forever been the lone noob on a panel for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years with Makola. He's always got reinforcement. So I'm happy to be, in the big numbers this go around. Dr. Artis, really appreciate you for stepping in. I know all of you have a lot to deal with. It is Christmas time, and want to congratulate both of you on your success with SACS. We know that that's a big deal. I echo the sentiments about being active. And I want to thank you all actually for being friends of health as well. We've been doing this work and wouldn't be able to be successful if we didn't have people like you helping us. So on behalf of the founders, we thank you for what you're doing today, what you do tomorrow, and what you're going to do in the future for not only your institutions, but the HBCU space. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. God bless you all.
Thank you. Likewise.
We now invite you to enjoy a presentation on all things health. There have been 10 cohorts to date. This has been a labor of love for us. We found ourselves creating a journal so that our scholars could write when they wanted to, have a voice when they wanted to, a podcast that we not so reluctantly share. We willingly share to the space, to individuals who desire to hold up the mantra of being excellent and being protectors of this space. We welcome you to join us for our next podcast, which occurs in about 10 minutes, a little less than 10 minutes. The new executive administrators, why athletic directors and coaches must reimagine their roles. If you can hang tight, please do that. If not, and you need to step away, you can revisit by simply going to the website at www.heleaders.org and simply click on the link. We invite you to explore our website to get information on our Lambda Mute cohort, our Inspire Institute, God willing, June 2021. June 3rd through the 6th will be held at Wiley College in Marshall, Texas. We invite you to come be a part of our foundation. We will see you shortly. Enjoy the commercial, and we'll be back with you.